Straight to embattled New York Governor Andrew Cuomo delivering remarks right now. First time we've heard from him since the allegations were made of sexual harassment.
Oh, no. I've been told I've done sexual harassment. Well, I just want you to know I've known Goombas and toads for years. I've stomped on their heads repeatedly. It's meant to convey warmth. It's a sign of love. I didn't mean to make them pop out of existence. I wasn't trying to accumulate coins and points. But I find myself at the end of this stage grasping the flag. They tell me the princess is in another castle, so I've got to go. I'll see you later.
You're tall, but I'm standing in front of you.
It's a podcast.
Welcome to You're Tall, but I'm Standing in Front of You, the podcast where two friends circling the drain of academia examine the cultural detritus of the 20th century. I'm Devin.
I'm Ethan.
And this week we have a film about love, a film about university real estate deals, a film about the true revolutionary subject of the American century, Italian-Americans. It's Super Mario Brothers from 1993. Ethan, why are we watching it?
Where to begin? So first and foremost, we talked about the Mario Brothers in our podcast about aliens, because it was about, the 80s and what greater a cultural force of the 80s, other than the Mario Brothers. And
second only to the Reagan administration.
Yeah, I mean, so we are really diving into the 90s now with this film, whereas the other two are very grounded in the 80s. This is sort of like it was made in 92, came out in 93. This is like Clinton was just elected. We're in a whole new era now. And it's just a different sort of beast than the other two that we watched.
And we do see, because we watched what it was like 1986 and 1987, the first two episodes. So by comparison, we've jumped forward like decades in time relatively. But it is, Bill Paxton told us in our last episode that it was Game Over Man.
Game over, man.
And
Game over.
As it turns out, it wasn't Game Over Man at all. It was maybe Cinema's Over Man. But, the games are still growing strong and they're even infecting the multiplex. But, we do see, this film, it's certainly the legacy of the 80s, right? It's the kids popping the quarters in the arcade kind of thing. But I actually do think as we go through it, we'll see there's a number of kind of tropes emerging in this film that are appearing in this film that are actually very typical of 1990s cinema. So I think we'll start to get a little bit of a sense, as much as there's like an 80s hangover in this movie, about what exactly is the cinema of the 90s, which, spoiler alerts, not anything too great.
You really touched on it with Game Over Man, because this is the first feature film that is based upon a video game. This is the first one.
Yeah.
And I think most would agree the best that has been adapted from video game material.
I may actually, as tortuous of a watch it was as you subjected me to, by the end of this pod, I may in fact unironically endorse that position because I don't really know what else is in competition for it. And at least it was breaking new ground.
Yeah, and you know, to the extent that people could mock it when it came out, like this idea of making a film about a video game, we're now long past the point in the present era of like making films about the board game Battleship. So this was a more civilized age, you might say.
Yeah, well, and it's also it's the emergence of our contemporary cinematic present in a lot of ways, right? Because it's like, you know, for as schlocky as they might have been, what you can't say about Predator and Aliens is they are not original cinematic properties, right? They are the products, perhaps the death throes of cinema. But now it's like, you know, people don't need me to point this out to them, but like look up what's playing in your local cinemaplex and find something that is not an adaptation, a reboot, a sequel.
Yeah, everything exists to prepare us for the next iteration of that thing. And Super Mario Brothers really transitions us into that that I guess maybe you could say like Back to the Future prepares us for that sort of thing. But it's
it's not
work.
Yeah, and you know, obviously it's not like a single event starts it, right? But like Super Mario Brothers, we start to see the emergence of a logic of adaptation that is willing to adapt anything. Because as you say, it's the first adaptation of a video game film, and we've certainly seen many since then. But a lot of the later ones we see are at least like they're films that are they're adaptations of video games that themselves have become more cinematic, right? Mm-hmm. Like a lot of video games, you know, with the kind of cutscenes you have now are essentially movies with then episodes in which you manipulate the character, right? But you're actually sitting there and passively watching for a lot of the experience. And so adapting something like that into a film is not that complicated, you know, which isn't to say it necessarily goes well, but it's like, you know, at the end of the day, how is that different from adapting a comic book with a lot of these things? But Mario Brothers, right, is
Super Mario Brothers.
Super Mario Brothers, on the face of it, a completely absurd thing to try to render into a narrative film. Because you think about it, it's like, okay, so background for folks who don't know, Super Mario Brothers is a video game about being a Italian plumber that for some reason exists in a kingdom inhabited by mushrooms and turtles who kills the evil versions of those by jumping on them in trying to save a princess. And, you know, it's not that the Mario Brothers is not telling some kind of like experimental avant-garde surrealist narrative as so much as it's non-narrative. It's not that interested in narrative. It's about physics. It's about the physics of jumping from place to place, right? Which, you know, the idea of trying to contort that into a film, you know, I don't even know where you start. Like,
well, yeah, because all of those games like Mario and all this, they sort of exist. The game mechanics exist based on the limitations of technology at the time. The reason why Mario is nonsensical is because you couldn't really have any sort of sensible world with the technology that they had there. You know, every game was kind of ridiculous by the fact that you only had so many pixels and so much you could do with. And so to try and make sense of it is kind of absurd because it only exists because of these external limitations that kind of forced that whole world to appear in the first place.
Yeah.
And yet.
But then, you know, we see this and we'll get into the plot in just a second, but just something I want to tell the listeners is reading about how this film was made, right? The directors, who are a husband and wife team, by the way, Morton and Jenkel, their approach to this adaptation was not to take the Mario game and be like, how do I make this into some kind of film? Which I can only imagine would have been like, if you actually tried to do that to the fullest extent, would have to be the most like avant-garde, like psychotropic experience imaginable, right? Like Mario doesn't speak, right? He just goes like, whoa, and stuff, and he says his name, this is but
Would you like to see the Paul Thomas Anderson version of Super Mario Brothers?
absolutely. Yeah. Get Daniel Day-Lewis as Mario, I think. No, he's more of a Luigi, actually.
I was about to say, yeah.
Well, the perfect Mario has left us Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Oh.
Well, that's why Paul's decided not to make it, because he had the perfect 1-2 punch. But the way the filmmakers chose to approach this, and they say this in various interviews, and the screenwriter says this as well, is they imagined that the film they were making was the basis for the Super Mario Brothers video game. So they tried to imagine what is the kind of cinematic narrative that would then inspire this video game, because actually adapting the video game into film seemed too insane. And that might sound a little crazy, but think about this, like, how many novelizations of films have you read? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This video games are the new art form, right? So the idea of then taking something that operates under a completely separate series of logics and narrative conventions and non-narrative conventions is kind of absurd. So their approach is actually not, I actually think when you watch the film in that light, it makes a little more sense.
Yeah, there are other few there are a few other historical aspects that I think also help it make sense. One of which is Tim Burton's Batman. And the other is the kind of anti-video game frenzy that had descended the nation around this sort of era, where video games were this threatening force that was undermining society's fabric.
The way officials tell it, Boston has become the victim of an electronic blight. With fewer than 600,000 people, the city has 4,000 to 5,000 video games, not just in arcades, but also in drugstores, pizza parlors, supermarkets. Officials say they are responding to complaints from parents that children have skipped school or stolen money to play the games and made a nuisance of themselves.
Senior citizens have rights. They have rights to go into the laundromat and wash their laundry in peace. They don't have to go by 2 or 3 machines or kids congregating and passing fast remarks as they walk in and terrorizing them in some instances as they go in.
And so if you could just bring in the parents into the world of video games, then perhaps that takes some of the teeth off of them and the wider narrative.
Yeah, you're a white suburban parent in the Reagan 80s. You walk into your child's bedroom, they're not coming down to dinner, what's going on? You go in there, they're wearing a dark cloak with a dagger, they've just bled out a goat. And whom are they bleeding it out to but the altar of Mr. Super Mario, the most nefarious being you could possibly imagine, right?
The video games, the movies, the internet stuff is so violent. It's so incredible. I see it. I get to see things that you'd be amazed at. I have a very young son who I look at some of the things he's watching and I say, how is that possible? And this is what kids are watching.
And when we say that, it sounds absurd, right? And obviously there are more violent video games that are existing at this time too, though no one seems that mad about Contra, which if we want to talk about video games with explicitly pro-Reagan politics, but it's not really, the thing is they might be expressing their anxiety through some content of what these games have, but the real anxiety is about shifting media forms, right? Shifting economies, right? Yeah. Like the world's not quite making sense anymore. Like the kids are supposed to be going down to the movie theater and having a malt, and now they're just like endlessly pumping quarters at the arcade. And that is degeneration or de-evolution, as it might be in this film, right?
And it's totally removed. Like you can't engage in that You know, as a parent, you can't like walk into the arcade and throw in some quarters and engage in that. So it is very alien and foreign, and probably to a lot of them very threatening.
Yeah, you don't know what's going on in these machines, right? What you're seeing, you can't manipulate them. You don't understand. What you're seeing is all of these children staring at these flashing screens, right? And just kind of pumping money into them and being completely engrossed. And like, I remember being a kid, I had like the N64 with the rumble pack. And I played it so much. I played I played Star Fox 64, which was the first game that had the rumble pack so much. I would then be at the dinner table, my hands would be shaking. And my mom was just like, this is really fucked up. You need to stop doing this, right? But because it was like, it's like physically changing my body, right? It's changing my relationship to the world. People say the same thing about smartphones now, but people are also saying the same thing about cinema, right? You think of like the cover to Society of the Spectacle by Debord, right? Of all these people with like the 3D glasses staring at a screen, right? Or like, you know, the emergence of television, right? All these things. It's like, oh, these people are just like passive, being mind controlled by this technology. And, you know, then I think a lot of like, you know, a lot of culture analysis will say it's actually more complicated than that. But, you know, you can understand the why this would be a confusing phenomenon.
Yeah, and if the goal of Super Mario Brothers, the film, was to counteract that narrative, they failed pretty spectacularly.
Yeah, so let's get into it a little bit.
Yeah.
The film starts, well, we watched different versions of it, we should say first off. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Ethan?
Yeah, I was mostly too lazy to download it.
Do you mean purchase it legally?
Yeah. Go down to the local Blockbuster and grab it. And so what I found was that there was a recently, like 3 or 4 years ago, released like fan version. There's a community of fans around this film. I wasn't aware. And one of them had stumbled upon a VHS tape that had some like extended scenes in it that I guess had been cut in production to make the movie tighter. And they took those and made a fan edit of it. And I guess they made a few other
like a restoration.
Yeah, but apparently also some other fan edits that you know, I guess were demanded within the community, but maybe weren't part of the actual cut itself. Because I owned this VHS as a kid and I watched it a lot. And I remember telling you when you were about to get into it, like, don't worry, they're going to explain the narrative. And the first 5 minutes is just it's what's his name, the voice of Homer Simpson, Dan Castellano.
Is it him? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I think it is. He does a narrative. It's like, there were dinosaurs, and then there was an asteroid, and then they became humans. That wasn't in my version, but it was in the one that you watched, which was the theatrical cut.
Yeah. And this is really interesting to me, right? So the scene in question is, we get this voiceover explaining to us over kind of like dinosaurs that are in like a sort of like pixel art, like video game style. That
you watched the theatrical version of Blade Runner is what you did.
No, absolutely. But it's explaining to me that this asteroid hit Brooklyn 65 million years ago, and we're told that results in the extinction of the dinosaurs. What it actually has done is plunge them into a parallel dimension. And so for me, I'm like, okay, got it. The version you watch doesn't say that, and I actually think has to be the superior film, because the version of the film where you're just kind of like gradually wondering what the hell is going on and have to piece together that there is a parallel dimension with dinosaurs in it that still exist, you know, much more interesting. But anyway, we're spoiling it for you. That's the initial premise.
Yeah, and it made me, as I watched it, think about the introduction to Predator and how it sort of sets you up with like something is going on here. A spaceship is, you know, shooting something at Earth, but we don't really know anything more than that. To me, the introduction I watched is there's dinosaurs, there appears to be an asteroid, and now we're in Brooklyn 20 years in the past of the film. And so it sort of is giving you some hints as to what's coming.
Yeah, so you basically were watching like Tree of Life by Terrence Malick. like just like the dinosaurs, also contemporary America, brother relationships, right? But so that's, speaking of genre, right? So it's like we talked about how in Predator we're kind of given this teaser of sci-fi, and then it becomes like a military film until it becomes sci-fi again. And so this, we get kind of this kind of like high concept sci-fi premise. And we'll get into the dinosaur thing. Just want to be clear, there are turtles in the video game. Turtles are much more fun than dinosaurs. I can only imagine it was like, we don't want to be too similar to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something, so we're going to make them dinosaurs instead.
Well, Bowser was he a dinosaur in the original?
He's got
game?
a shell, buddy. He's got a spiky shell. Now he's like a fusion kind of he's like a dinosaur-ish turtle. Like he's huge and stuff, but that's because he's the king of the turtles.
Snapping turtle.
The Koopa Troopers on the ground are just like typical turtles, but but that's just one, as we say, this film was just the video game is just an adaptation of it. So, but then, speaking of generic twists, and this is equally defamiliarizing, whether you watch the fan restore or the theatrical, we get this scene we started 65 million years ago. Now we're just 20 years ago. And we get this scene, and it's like I can't think of what the specific filmic references for this are, but it's like a trope scene that you've seen before of like, it's like raining, and there's like the woman in a cloak with, it turns out to be a baby, but it's a bundle with a big egg in it, right? And she drops it off at like a Catholic church with the nuns, right? And I feel like we see this in like the beginning of like the Disney Hunchback of Notre Dame. Like this is like a trope, right? Like the special baby that's dropped off with like the nuns, right? And of course she's being chased by Dennis Hopper, who will turn out later to be King Koopa, aka Bowser. But we see that this giant dinosaur egg has been dropped off at this convent, which then hatches to reveal a seemingly human baby inside of it.
The thing that just occurred to me, because I was confused when I first saw it, is that the King Koopa, I guess he wasn't king at that point, when he appears in that first scene, he's wearing like a military general uniform. So I guess perhaps you can assume that this was a military coup that is taking place.
That's actually really interesting, yeah, because he then later in the film, he becomes more of like a president, right? He's wearing a suit and stuff. So yeah, we're getting the glimpse of this is like in like the Reagan 80s or something, this earlier scene, right? Of establishing the older kind of more militaristic power that's then going to be supplanted by the sort of like Clintonian New Democrat, wear a nice suit, kiss a baby kind of image. But so we've had these two very confusing opening scenes across a large stretch of time. I remember looking at this, and I had seen the film as a kid, but I'm looking at this baby and I'm being like, okay, so that's Mario, obviously. But then where's Luigi? That doesn't make sense. I was expecting the egg to crack and there'd be two babies inside of it. And I was going to be like, oh, it's like Mario is secretly a dinosaur or something, but it's not that. And then we are transported into a completely different genre of film for like a pretty long duration, like comparing to Predator, which is more just kind of like occupational comedy, I guess we would say, right?
Yeah. I mean, it has to establish the fact that they are plumbers, and
you're in the Mario Brothers writers room. You're like, day one, guys, we got to establish they're plumbers.
But I do feel like the writers had up on their board, anytime they began a new scene, they're like, and remember, they're plumbers. Because half the time, like, oh, look at this. It's just like all that plumbing's all stuck up. We better unstick it to advance the plot. And that's like the thing that seems to happen repeatedly in this.
Plumbers!
No, he is. I'm just apprenticing.
Get in the car!
But I didn't do
Get in
nothing.
the car! Are you telling us that you can arrest the guy for being a plumber? Get out of here! Get in there, plumber! No!
But they're plumbers.
Mario and Luigi.
Mario and Luigi. Mario and Luigi Mario.
Played by Bob Hoskins as Mario and John Leguizamo as Luigi.
They're the titular characters, the Mario brothers.
They're Brooklyn plumbers. They're Italian-Americans. And things aren't going well. It's supposed to be a time of prosperity. The Soviet Union has fallen. Capitalism is about to overtake the entire world and end history, and there's not going to be any more problems ever again. But the Mario brothers aren't doing so hot. They're operating a small-time, unionized, I might add, plumbing operation, and they are getting their asses kicked by the Scapelli plumbers.
Scapelli.
Now, who is this Scapelli?
Scapelli.
He immediately shows up in person in the next scene, which is where they introduce us to Daisy, who is, you get the idea that she is the baby who hatched at the beginning because she has this like mineral around her neck.
It's like a crystal necklace.
Yeah. Much more on that later, but she is, so the idea for me, it seems she is a NYU student.
Is she like a grad student, or it was unclear to me what her level of?
She was a
she's
baby
got a lot
20
of
years. She's 20 years old. You remember this is 20 years.
Oh, that's a good
baby.
point.
So like
she's only 20. Yeah.
So she must be an undergrad.
But she's been put in charge of an archaeological dig for dinosaur bones in the middle of Brooklyn that this Scapelli plumber mobster is trying to shut down.
Yeah, I forget. He has like a development he wants to build or something.
Yeah, and it's like the development has been paused by court order until they finish like excavating the dinosaur bones.
One of Brooklyn's largest construction projects has been ordered shut down as university students continue their search for dinosaur bones. Head contractor Anthony Scapelli is now arriving, hoping to settle the dispute.
And she's like, "You have to wait until our court order is done." And he's like, "Hey, I think you're gonna finish tonight, sweet stuff," or whatever he says. Like a veiled threat. But like New York City, Brooklyn is just full of these, working class Americans, professional managerial class people, all just trying to get by. But the evil Italian is fucking it all up.
Yeah, and so I guess the court order said that either until you finish the dig or it is sabotaged. So
until it is clearly sabotaged. But we should talk about Daisy a little bit quick.
Yeah. So the biggest thing for me is they went with Daisy over Peach. Peach is not in this film, as far as I can tell, at all.
Yeah, and I think Peach probably, right, like to most people, maybe even the second character you would think of with Mario, you might even think of Peach before Luigi. Certainly the third, right? But completely absent. They go with Daisy. Daisy is basically sort of like the alternate color palette to Peach, as far as I understand, right? She's like the brunette Peach with a yellow dress instead of it. And to the extent there is like a narrative mythos of Mario that the average person has a grasp on, I think it extends to pretty much Mario, Luigi, and rescuing Peach and stuff. But then there's this whole host of characters who we mostly know via their continual reiteration in games like Mario Party, Mario Kart, Mario Tennis, like Waluigi, I don't even think has ever appeared in a game that isn't one of those, right? But Daisy to me was always one of those people. It was like, I don't know who Daisy is. I don't know where Daisy shows up in the Mario canon of like the mainstream games or whatever, but she's someone who you can like drive a car with, play golf with, or what have you. But they've chosen to go with her. And I think, there's a few reasons for that. Partly it's just like structurally in this film, Luigi is really kind of the main character in a sense. And I think that's partly just because it's like John Leguizamo is playing him. So he's like the younger, more kind of like charismatic figure. Bob Hoskins' Mario is kind of like more like comic relief and like older brotherly / fatherly advice. Like, I don't know. How do you read the choice of Daisy?
Yeah, to me, part of it is that where you're sort of setting up Luigi and Daisy. It would be because I'm assuming that they hired Bob Hoskins early in the process.
Because he's got the look.
Yeah, there's some quote when he was behind the scenes where he's like, I don't know anything about video games. I've got the mustache. That's why they hired me. I don't read the lines because they change them every day. And so that he understood that he was chosen because he had the Mario aesthetic. But I don't know. I guess it would have been too much for his character to take on all those tropes and also like have this love interest in it. On top of the fact that like she's 20 and Bob Hoskins at this point is in his late 40s or like I don't know.
And God forbid you give an actress above the age of 35 some work.
Yeah.
But no, and there's something to that what you're saying, because it's like I feel like this film that literally is an adaptation of Mario Brothers could not imagine actually like making Mario the protagonist, right? But it also couldn't deviate too much from Mario. It couldn't make Mario into the John Leguizamo character, because then it's like, what are you doing? So it needs Mario to kind of just be this guy who's there to look like Mario.
Yeah, he's and then supposed to be affable.
Exactly. And then Luigi, you just have a little more leeway with, because nobody's going to get mad at you about Luigi. So Luigi, you can make into like this character with a personality, with an arc. And then, you get his love interest, which is Daisy.
There would have been no purpose for the Luigi character if there wasn't the Daisy character, right? Like, why else would he? Because he can't be like a comic backup, because that's sort of what Mario is already doing. So it, I guess, made more sense in the carefully constructed narrative of this film.
It's interesting thinking about like the kind of different genres of adaptation, right? Because like Mario, in a sense, has more in common with like vaudeville or like pre-cinematic forms, right? He's not a character who has to have like a narrative. He's there to do amusing physical stunts. He's there to look funny. He's there to like say funny one-liners, right? So like he's kind of almost he's both this very new figure, this video game character, and then also kind of this remnant of an older form of storytelling, or not even storytelling, an older form of entertainment, right? The new and the old together. And then like the Daisy Luigi plot of like kind of like, a very like blasé romance is how the film shields itself from falling into just being like vaudeville or like experimental in some way. Like it's like the protected plot core that then gives the film permission to signify video games in various other ways through like special effects and through the little bits, right? Because a lot of this film is like getting us from place to place so we can have like a bit, which is also like a vaudeville thing, right? Like you go see a vaudeville show and we're going to give you like a series of kind of like disconnected little entertainments that don't need to tell like an overarching story.
Yeah. So I think you're also giving perhaps more credit than is deserved in the fact that nobody really knew what was happening with any of the characters in this film. So it's a bit all over the place, but we have all the characters. They're all set now. They all meet each other at a telephone booth. You're also at that point introduced to like the Koopa brothers or the Koopa cousins, whatever it is, the bad guys in like the very shiny, silky suits, kind of like a Night at the Roxbury almost characters.
Yeah, played by, I just want to say, so one of them is played by the guy who is the villain from Hackers. He plays the Plague. And then the other one is played by the original drummer from Sonic Youth.
Really?
Yeah, the guy, the one with the facial hair, was the original drummer for Sonic Youth, and then left the band to pursue an acting career.
Richard Edson?
Yeah, yeah.
Fisher Stevens, who's the other one who played Iggy, he was the thing that I most recognized him from was Short Circuit, where he played very problematic, like Indian scientist.
As we're fond of saying in my country, marketplace make dull home for rodents.
Where are you from anyway?
Bakersfield originally.
No, I mean your ancestors.
Oh, damn. Pittsburgh.
Oh, no.
It's not good, folks.
Yeah, we should probably do both Short Circuit and Hackers at some point. And we could just do this guy's entire filmography. But yeah, but they're kind of like these, you know, and it's, they to me, they kind of, I kept expecting them to be the Hammer Brothers, which they're not. But like, they kind of have this just sort of like, even though they are played by human actors, they have this, as you said, Night at the Roxbury kind of clothing and very kind of like exaggerated performance, very cartoony performance. And you kind of, even before you've diegetically found out who they are, you have the sense that like, okay, these guys are like dinosaurs or reptilian in some sense. I actually think it's one of the better parts of the film. Like they really sell being a reptile. Dennis Hopper, not so much, to me at least.
Yeah, but it's also interesting because those two actors were in the same instance of this production nightmare where scripts were changing day in, day out. And their solution was, well, we're just going to make up our lines on the spot. And for the most part, it doesn't work. And you can see that though they're really just sort of ad-libbing, but the fact that it doesn't work is fine for those characters because they're not meant to really be very witty anyways.
Between you and me, Spike hasn't got a thought in his brain, sir.
He's a lawyer, sir. Between us, Iggy doesn't have a brain in his head.
Yeah, and see, and this is like going back to, you were saying like I was giving the film too much credit, but I actually think this is where the film is fucking up and where it like doesn't know what it's doing is actually where the strangeness of video games in general, but like Mario in particular, breaks through. Kind of like probably against anyone's intention, right? But these kind of like these lines that just like don't make sense, right? It's like it reminds me of it's like you're in a video game and you go up to like an NPC and you just keep talking to them and they just keep saying like, you know, like the turnips are in season. The turnips are in season, you know? It's like, and if that was happening in reality, that would be completely absurd. Within the logic of the video game, we know we're manipulating it, right? But some of the weirdness of what it would mean to be in what is a simulated, like algorithmic universe comes through in some of this like nonsensical, unplanned dialogue.
Yeah, so Daisy is essentially saved from the Koopa brothers by the Mario brothers happening to be there at the same time at this phone booth. They offer her a ride in their plumbing van, and
which ladies always accept the ride in the plumbing van.
But this was the early 90s. This was right before Rudy Giuliani became mayor of New York, and that was, if it happens like in the modern era, if you're ever offered a spot on a plumbing van from some friendly Brooklyn plumbers, don't get on because they're definitely cops.
Well, I just want to say, like, right, we have competing ideas of what being Italian American in the 1990s is going to be in this film, right? We have the Mario brothers, who are either of them Italian? I know Leguizamo isn't. Does Hoskins have any Italian in him? But
I thought he was British.
Yeah, but but they're
he's
playing
an English actor. Yeah.
Okay, so but we have them representing Italianness for us, which is fine. And like I'm Italian. The Italianness in American discourse is very politically fraught, right? But Mario and Luigi in this film actually, I think, offer us a alternative possibility to what Italianness could have been in the 90s and the aughts, right? They're unionized laborers. They intercede in things that they don't have stakes in, but to like do the right thing, right? They, and then we have the alternative to them is Scapelli, right?
Scapelli?
So it's interesting because like there's a lot of films where there's an Italian mobster character. That's the villain. And when the protagonist is non-Italian, you could say like, okay, this is like some sort of like, the dirty Italians are coming in and mucking everything up. In this film, it's like, it's Italian v Italian for a while, right? But it's like, we've had this version of Italianness that is both simultaneously like rooted in this older kind of like mob iconography, but then also weirdly contemporary and bureaucratic. And I can't think of anything that more augurs like the Rudy Giuliani administration, right? Like, I'm going to come in and I'm going to clean up New York City. I'm going to clean up the pipes, literally and figuratively, but through the most like horrible exploitative means, right? Whereas like Mario and Luigi are like, they say at one point in the film, like when the pipes aren't working somewhere, it must not have been a union job, right? This is like a version, not exactly like they're Sacco and Vanzetti, but they're like a idea of the lingering of the working class, sort of like leftist unionized tradition of Italian Americans that kind of starts to fall away in the 90s as like Italian Americans have become completely subsumed under whiteness, under the Republican Party, and willing to completely sell out in order to advance socially and politically, right? But we don't see, what does Luigi say? He says
anything's possible, Mario. You just gotta believe.
Mario says,
I do believe. I believe the rent is 3 months overdue. That's what I believe.
But that is, a reality of the Italian American experience that we don't see represented in film very often.
Yeah, and continuing on that vein, later in the evening they go out for spaghetti. And
the traditional Italian American meal.
Yeah. They had somehow convinced Daisy to go on a date with them that evening. Then this is weird because like it seems like so Mario is trying to like encourage Luigi to ask Daisy out on a date when it seems not necessarily advisable, and she weirdly says yes. Yeah.
And then it cuts to it and it's a double date. Like he didn't ask her on a double date, but like it just like without explanation, Mario and Mario's girlfriend are also there.
Yes, but then immediately, remove themselves from the situation. Oh, y'all kids go out and we're going back home so my gal can get kidnapped. So they split up and Luigi goes with Daisy. She's like, hey, you want to see the excavation site? Which, ethically speaking is not perhaps what you should do. But they go to
She's an undergrad, man. She should not have been put in charge of an archaeological dig in the middle of like the most expensive city in the country.
And yet here we are. You can't beat the price of that labor. And they go down into the sewers, but go figure, Scapelli's guys have sabotaged it and they're flooding the sewers is where the excavation is.
Yeah, I guess because it's underground, right?
Because again, they're in the writing room. They start every scene with, remember, they're plumbers.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
so they're like, they're sitting there and they're like, how can we join the two threads of this film, dinosaurs and plumbers? And it's like, wait a minute, dinosaurs are underground, as is the plumbing system. And that produces the film's necessary problem, which is one that can be solved by plumbers. So the excavation site starts getting flooded.
Yeah. And so Luigi Mario calls Mario. I guess there now is a phone at the site, although earlier Daisy did need to go to a payphone to. It's confusing. Don't think about it. So they
keep moving.
Mario. They call Mario, who isn't aware that his girlfriend actually got abducted by the Koopa brothers because they think it's actually Princess Daisy. But Luigi Mario tells Mario that it was the Scapelli. It was Scapelli and his goons, and that's all that he had to say. And they come down. Mario comes down to help fix the plumbing, which just conveniently puts him in the underground plumbing system. So that
and apparently he was close enough to get there in time. Don't think too much about the details.
They fix the plumbing, but are immediately knocked out by the Koopa cousins, who have come back because they realize they kidnapped the wrong person. But they're like, oh, this is convenient because here's Daisy right here. And we're just going to knock out these two plumbers and take Daisy to the alternate dimension. So they knock out Mario and Luigi, and they take Daisy with them.
Yeah, and just an aside, I mean, what more of a metaphor for the complete incorporation of Italian-Americans into whiteness than the fact that, like, as we later find out, upwards of like 7 very, very Italian women have all somehow been confused for Daisy, who is not like coded Italian at all. But for some reason, they keep accidentally abducting Italian women. It's like very unclear to me why that's happening. There's some kind of like class blindness that's because Daisy is like a PMC figure. She's this like NYU student, all fancy, doing the archaeological dig. But like when she later finds out how many women have been abducted that they think is her, they're all like along the lines of Mario's date, which is kind of like a like avant la lettre, like Jersey Shore kind of person. Right?
Yeah, they're like Long Island sort of crew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love them. I'm not disparaging them, but I'm not sure why the Koopa cousins keep abducting these kind of people.
Yeah, and clearly a lot is on the line because, King Koopa is going to kill them if they don't get it right, and yet they still keep abducting random women. But they finally get it right, and they take her into an alternate dimension. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but the kind of crux of this film is that Koopa wants to merge the dimensions.
I think we can spoil that. Yeah.
But it's unclear why he can't just invade through this opening in the dimensions that clearly
the logistics would just be a nightmare.
That's true.
And then here's the thing, you've transported a tank through this dimensional void, which by the way is just sort of like a weird wall that you jump into. You kind of become dust and then you go on the other side.
Well, this film is all about faith.
Yeah. You get you
just gotta believe
a tank on the other side of this. You've just got a tank in the sewers of New York. What are you going to do with it, right?
Right. You need to merge the dimensions.
It is weird because like we need to get someone on here that's more of a Mario expert than me. But the jumping into this like kind of like I don't know what to call it, but a wall, this like surface.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the Super Mario 64 where you jump into the paintings to go into other worlds. But that game comes out after this movie. So I don't know. I haven't played the like Super Nintendo area Mario stuff very much. I don't know if they're basing that on Mario or if possibly Mario 64 actually drew something on this film, which would be kind of interesting to me. But that's more of like a nerd topic. So.
Yeah.
We'll release a bonus episode where we bring someone on to set us straight, where they're like, I can't believe you don't know about like the dust wall in Super Mario World 2, but
yeah.
Cut that. That was a mean-spirited joke. I don't want to have that kind of vibe on the podcast.
Yeah, don't you worry. I will definitely cut that. So we're about to introduce King or President Koopa. So they go through this alternate dimension.
And this is where like our genre shifts. Like we're calling what we were talking about with Predator. Like we've been in kind of just this like slice of life Brooklyn thing. It's not that different from a film like Moonstruck or something, right? And now we are back in the sci-fi realm, the fantasy realm.
Yeah. They land in Dino Haddon.
Inspired name.
Yeah, I forget if it cuts immediately to like the Koopa cousins coming back, but they introduce King Koopa or President Koopa or Bowser. I'm going to use these names interchangeably, but
who we've previously glimpsed.
Yeah,
in that like drop off the baby at the nunnery scene, chasing the woman who is presumably Daisy's mother. But we don't know who he is yet at that point.
Right. But you're introduced to him. Thankfully, he provides exposition. So those of us that watch the film version that doesn't have the Homer Simpson voiceover, he's like, let me tell you about the last 65 million years. I'm
always explaining to my like assistants and attaches the like previous 65 million years of history that's informing my present decisions.
This place pathetic. It gets worse every day.
It's disgusting.
The humans on the other side have a world full of resources, ready for the taking. Imagine an endless supply of food, clean air, water. And what are we stuck with? This pit hole, germs everywhere, fungus. 65 million years. We've been exiled here after the meteorite struck, while mammals roam free in the other dimension. Well, not for long.
When you get your rock.
When I get the princess.
Princess?
I need the rock and the princess Daisy. And I'll finally be able to merge our world with theirs and get rid of the mammals.
It's everything you've hoped for, everything we've worked for.
The thing that I find very impressive is the dinosaurs have had a 65 million year head start on humanity. It actually seems to have taken quite a while for what I'm going to assume it would be called dino-capitalism to completely ravage the entirety of the alternate dimension world to the point where Dino Haddon is the only inhabitable part. The 65 million years, like we've got a run on them.
That is such a good point, because what they think they're doing when they make this film is they're being like, oh, you think humans are bad? Well, the dinosaurs, their version of Manhattan's even worse, even more smog filled, even more like cyberpunky. Like it's like shitty Blade Runner, which Blade Runner is already like the shitty version of the sci-fi future. Super Mario Brothers is like one level shittier. But like, as you've just pointed out, and I didn't think about this before you said it, right? Like it took them 65 million years to degrade to this point. Like we've barely made it like a fraction of that.
So we could conclude that there was no Dino Reagan.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, because
unless it's King Koopa, but so we're brought to this like it's Dino Haddon. It's this like it's essentially like it weirdly mirrors Manhattan, like pretty very precisely. Weirdly.
Yeah,
like there are one-to-one building correspondences and shit. But the idea is that this is the alternate dimension in which the dinosaurs are living, and they've built this city called Dino Haddon.
Where are we? I don't know. Maybe we got knocked unconscious for 100 years and we woke up in Manhattan of the future.
Maybe the Bronx is today. No wonder they tell you never to come up here.
Mario, I got a feeling. We're not in Brooklyn no more.
Where you going? Hey.
Quick aside. Also, the dinosaurs are now people.
That's the other thing, yeah. So the other conceit of the film is that over the course of these 65 million years, the dinosaurs have evolved into human forms, but they also hate mammals. But they don't consider themselves mammals. But apparently this film feels like any given species, if given enough time, will like eventually become human. And so such that the like evil dinosaur king can be played by Dennis Hopper, who, and I think this is where we have to dive into some background. If you watch this film, just know that anytime you see anyone, especially Dennis Hopper, Bob Hoskins, or John Leguizamo, they are uproariously drunk.
They are. Yeah, the understanding was that Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo would get drunk before shoots, and then throughout production, like in between scenes, they would drink whiskey, and that seems very obvious having watched this film.
It's almost like they're recording a podcast.
Whatever gets the creative juices flowing, or not. Oh God. Oh no. Yeah. Are we Super Mario Brothers? Yeah, but they all hated the production, is the idea that you get. There are some great lines. Can I do a quick aside?
Yeah, dive into some of these quotes.
So Dennis Hopper, his quote was, "It was a nightmare, very honestly, that movie. It was a husband and wife directing team who were both control freaks and wouldn't talk before they made decisions. Anyway, I was supposed to go down there for 5 weeks and I was there for 17. It was so over budget."
I was just gonna say, Dennis Hopper, he does True Romance this same year. I think one of his better performances. Blue Velvet was like 7 years ago, right? And he's somehow found himself in this mess. This is like one of our great actors of the 20th century. And just, I can't even describe, you have to watch the film. The acting he's doing is not, it's not right to call it bad acting. It's the acting of an amazing actor who is like physically angry at the script and wants to destroy it. Like he's reading the lines with such a subtle intensity of, I can't believe you're making me do this.
The meteorite piece that she wears around her neck, and I told you not to forget it. I told you not to forget it. And I told you to remind him. Without that piece, the meteorite lays dormant. I'll not be able to merge the dimensions. Where is it?
I dredged up a 1992 LA Times article where they went to the set. And this is apparently where the studio executives found out that things were not going quite well on set. And there is a line from Dennis Hopper because he heard that the directors, the husband and wife duo, were not giving interviews. And he said, "Oh, the directors won't give interviews? That's the smartest thing I've heard from them. That's the only intelligent thing I've heard that they've really actually done." This is during production, like the film hasn't even been released, and he's going off to an LA Times reporter. I love it.
Yeah. Well, and something my partner Kanar pointed out while we were watching this, which I had never noticed before, and I wonder if this is going to register for you, but they pointed out that the Dennis Hopper performance in this very much presages Michael Myers' performance as Dr. Evil in Austin Powers.
Interesting.
Go back and watch it with that in mind. Like, it is a unironic Dr. Evil performance. It's just Dennis Hopper being like so pissed off. He's just like, I'm gonna read these lines. I want to get out of here. And it like ends up coming across like you can only see it if you look for it. But like, I don't know if Michael Myers intentionally drew on this for his portrayal of Dr. Evil or not, but it is really interesting to me that this is like this like early 90s villain who very much rhymes with Dr. Evil later, who's like ostensibly parodizing much earlier forms of villainy, right? Like the older James Bond movies, but I think is also like tapping into some of the kind of like the increasing absurdity also of making a villain in that style in the 90s. It just doesn't quite work the same way anymore.
Yeah, and to be clear, Dennis Hopper was not the only one who was angry with the state of production. So Bob Hoskins later was asked, what the worst thing he had ever done was. And he said, well, the worst thing I ever did, Super Mario Brothers. It was a fucking nightmare. The whole experience was a nightmare. It had a husband and wife team directing whose arrogance had been mistaken for talent. After so many weeks, their own agent told them to get off the set. Fucking nightmare. Fucking idiots.
It's interesting to me how often the fact that it's a husband and wife duo comes up in this. And like, we don't really have a lot else to judge this duo on. They've done like they did music videos prior to this. And then I guess they've done not very much since Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, so like my favorite article correction that I've ever read. It said, this article was amended on 22 of March 2018. An earlier version said that after Super Mario Brothers, Annabelle Jankel and Rocky Morton never made another movie. This has been corrected to say another Hollywood movie.
So what else have they made is my question. I'm just like pulling up
Clearly
there.
one of them reached out with something that they had made that they wanted to be on the record with.
Okay, and we should mention these are the people who created Max Headroom.
Which is why they were hired for this, really.
Yeah, because that was like, Max Headroom was this sort of like attempt to grapple with like emerging media. If people don't know Max Headroom, it's like an MTV character, I guess. Like, do you know more about it?
AI. It's like supposed to be an AI. It was portrayed by an actor, but it was kind of supposed to merge these worlds of computer animation and AI and like television, and so I think that's why they were probably hired to do this.
Yeah, and like most remembered probably for like when the like signal of the broadcast was hijacked, or
right.
And it actually wasn't a Max Headroom broadcast that was hijacked, but the some television stations in Chicago were hijacked by a guy who was like dressed up as Max Headroom and kind of does this like weird performance, and I think we still don't know who did it, right? But these directors are on like, they're on the like cutting edge of like this period in which like the internet is emerging, new forms of media are emerging, video games are becoming more popular, and
they had never done a big Hollywood film.
Yeah, but they didn't know how to make a feature film, right? Yeah. Which is maybe what makes this film more interesting.
So we're introduced to King Koopa, President Koopa. He's angry that the Koopa cousins haven't actually gotten this, asteroid shard that they need to plug back into the asteroid. The Mario Brothers also come through the portal, are pretty much immediately apprehended by the police. Not before they lose that necklace that Luigi had like ripped off of Daisy before she went through the portal. They go into Dino Haddon and are immediately arrested, as is normally the case in, Rudy Giuliani's Manhattan.
Yeah, so there's basically like a stop and frisk policy in place for plumbers.
Mm-hmm.
The cops are just looking for plumbers, and unfortunately, plumbers have a lot of external signifiers that they're plumbing. They've got some tools,
And plumbers, of course, is a dog whistle for Italians. So.
Absolutely.
Hey, what is this?
All right, what do we do?
I'm getting arrested for being a plumber.
Put his number down.
Yeah, so they are pretty much immediately apprehended, along with Toad, who is, of course, a character because he's a character in Super Mario Brothers, but he's like a folk singer in this iteration.
He's like a folk punk, anti-Koopa singer, played by
Mojo Nixon.
But apparently the filmmaker's first choice was Tom Waits. Which would have been great. But if you can just imagine the most kind of dollar bin version of Tom Waits, it's basically that, and it doesn't matter because he's only in the film for 30 seconds before he's transformed into a Goomba. But
the Mojo Nixon himself is, of course, more well known for some of his bigger hits, like Debbie Gibson is Pregnant with My Two-Headed Love Child. Not to mention his later hit, which was called Tie My Pecker to My Leg. But he was the one that...
Are you shitting me? Are these real movies?
He was a musician. These are real songs.
Oh, these are songs. Okay.
Yes.
So he's like a naughty folk singer.
He appears to be that, yes. Anyhow, they all get arrested. They go to jail. We're introduced to the Devo chamber, the de-evolution chamber, which is how they make the Goombas. They de-evolve the people of Dino Haddon into these fascist goons, essentially.
They're like little dinosaur heads on these giant bodies. It's a little unclear how that works, but as we talked about, this film has a very loosey-goosey idea of how evolution works.
Yeah. Now President Koopa goes down to the prison to interrogate the Mario brothers. He also is at the de-evolution chamber. He's very hands-on. All
he's directly involved in everything.
Yeah.
He's very concerned, we should also say, about a fungus infection that is overtaking Dino Haddon, right? So like we see him sanitizing his hands constantly. And at this point, we don't know exactly what's going on, but there's like, like this fungus is spreading everywhere. We see some sort of like, it kind of spreading along the very like kind of dilapidated New York set.
Yeah. Now, Reagan was always wise enough to like put Ollie North in the driver's seat of his various shenanigans, but President Koopa is like in the room. There's no deniability.
Yeah. This is kind of, speaking of the ways in which he recalls Rudy Giuliani, right? This is a little bit of his downfall, right? Is he wants to get personal credit for everything that's going on. He's not content to deputize, and this is ultimately his downfall in a lot of ways.
Yeah, Dennis Hopper's character is just, to me, very obviously Rudy Giuliani, and I know this film came out the year before he actually took office, but the parallels are there throughout the film. And when we get to when the worlds merge, spoiler alert, we'll talk more. Again, I hate to
I just want to say, like, to anyone that wants to counter your claim that King Koopa is Rudy Giuliani by saying like, oh, like this film came out too early, he hasn't fully emerged as a figure, you are taking a overly positivist view of history. The conditions that created Rudy Giuliani were there, and they simultaneously created Rudy Giuliani and King Koopa as played by Dennis Hopper.
The other thing you have to remember is that at this point in time, Rudy Giuliani had already been the like U.S. attorney for like Southern District of New York. He was already the King Koopa of Dino Haddon during the Reagan 80s. And what he wanted to do, starting in the early 90s, was to merge the universes of the U.S. Attorney and Manhattan into one entity via his mayorship. And so it's just it layers perfectly on top of one another. Rudy Giuliani and King Koopa.
Rudy Giuliani, it's like one of the main characters of this podcast has been Ronald Reagan. As we've talked about, and we're still talking about him in this episode because he really is, he indexes the moment where the distinction between media and politics, to the extent it was ever distinguishable, just completely falls apart. But like, if Ronald Reagan is the guy that's like, bringing you the souped up car, Rudy Giuliani is the guy that's driving it off a fucking cliff.
Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani. Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani.
Did you all watch My Cousin Vinny? Did you all watch My Cousin Vinny?
Greatness! Killing us and our allies!
Well, so the Mario Brothers escape, right, is what's important.
They escape.
However they escape is
yeah.
just a matter of specifics. But
yeah, they're out of there. There is a chase scene. My question was that supposed to be Mario Kart? Because Mario Kart came out essentially like a year before this film. So it was like, would have been.
It didn't recall Mario Kart to me when I was watching it. Like, I feel like if they were evoking Mario Kart, there would be some kind of like signifier of like the power-ups or something in some way, but
Mario Kart was
weird. Like,
it was coming out when this film was being filmed, so I wanted to say like, hey, we're gonna do a Mario with cars, and they're like, well, let's do a car thing with Mario.
Well, and remember, this is the film that inspired the video game. So like, they saw there was a car chasing this, and they were like, what if we made a video game that is all cars? But the radio comes in. They're driving a police car, right? And the police radio they're listening to, and it comes in and it's like,
alien species escaping from police detention. Aliens?
And recalling some of our discussion from Aliens, right? Of like the kind of like the silly jokes that get made about the term alien in this period, which, you know, is also simultaneously an incredibly dehumanizing term that is justifying incredible violence against actual people. But, you know, there's kind of this like witty banter back and forth of like Luigi's like,
aliens? Oh, we gotta deal with aliens too?
And Mario says,
Luigi, we're the aliens! Yeah? Whoa, cool!
This is played for laughs, but there is like there's a thing that's going on in this film, again, probably despite its intentions, right? Where like the Italian-American heroes, by entering this alternate dimension, have sort of regained their status as immigrants, as capital O others, right? So like in the human world, as we've talked about, Italian Americans have been already completely pretty much integrated into whiteness. And all that remains of their otherness is like jokes about spaghetti and meatballs, right? But like the film is able to reposition Mario and Luigi as these sort of like alternative heroes to the sort of like Reaganite impositions through this dimensional transfer. But unfortunately, also Dennis Hopper is Rudy Giuliani, who's also Italian. So it doesn't work very well. But
Italians all the way down.
Yeah.
But they don't understand that, like, they've been criminalized by their mere existence within this world that is totally beyond their control, and they don't understand the fact that their identity has been criminalized. Like, you're gonna arrest you just arrest someone for being a plumber.
So anyway, despite the degree to which they do or do not ascertain the degree to which their Italianness has been commodified under late capitalism, Mario and Luigi end up in the desert outside of Dino-Hatton. And it turns out that this world is entirely fucked, actually. And there's just this like tiny little sliver of development that is like a simulacrum of Manhattan, and the rest is just basically like devastated desert. And then we go back to Daisy.
Yeah, so it like somehow the Dino-Hatton world is running at least 40 or 50 years ahead of our normal world, and
10, 20
this is the 90s is when this happened, so now that was 30 years ago. We go back. Daisy's picked up by this Lena character who's like Bowser or President Koopa's right hand gal. She's like, and you are Princess Daisy, and she's in the room with all the other women who have been abducted from New York. And the one thing I found hilarious is one of the captured people from New York just goes, "This is getting weird." Like, they're in a room with these giant dinosaur monsters and all these other things, but when they're like, this lady is Princess Daisy, she's like, well, now this is weird.
Wait, you're telling me there's specific kinds of like royalist genealogies happening here?
You're gonna have to talk me through how the monarchy evolved in Dino-Hatton, because I don't get it.
You're telling me you've maintained an unbroken line of secession for 65 million years? So I just want to be clear. I'm Italian, so I can't be canceled for this, but cancel Ethan, please. Twitter @Mathisipi.
I did do a Ancestry.com DNA test, which means I can't murder anyone in California without getting caught. And my ancestors very explicitly avoided living in Italy. I've looked at the map, and Italy and like essentially like romantic, like France, Spain. None of my ancestors were in any way affiliated with that.
They were like, whoa, hey, back up a few yards. You know?
It's too close.
Yeah. You've been like, you've been in like the southern part of France for like 700 years, and then suddenly you walk a little too far, some fucking guy comes up to you, he's like endless breadsticks. What do you say? What do you say? How many what kind of currency do we have in this historical period? How much do you got?
So I don't know where we were.
Well, we found out that Daisy is the princess. They basically revealed to us, spoiler alert, that Daisy was the baby from the beginning, which is pretty much you figured out at that.
Because she has the she had the necklace with the thing that the baby had.
But she doesn't know that because she didn't watch the 2 scenes at the beginning.
Right. So she's taken to President Koopa, and we're introduced to Yoshi, who there's no reason why Yoshi should be. And I realize what I'm saying in the context of Super Mario Brothers the film, but even within the context of Super Mario Brothers the film, there is no reason why Yoshi should or did exist.
I have been, possibly just as a troll, trying to be the most generous reader of this film possible throughout this episode of the pod, but like I can't even come up with a reading of Yoshi that is anything other than they were like, oh well, we decided to make the turtles dinosaurs, but Yoshi is a dinosaur already, so we have to have Yoshi in there. So what if King Koopa was just like, hey, by the way, here's Yoshi. He's like in the room with you, and he's like kind of caged up, and he just kind of looks like a shitty version of the raptors from Jurassic Park.
The Jurassic Park animatronics team apparently visited the set of Super Mario Brothers and were so impressed by Yoshi that they wanted to hire the animatronics people from Super Mario Brothers.
But what you have to keep in mind is, if you've come to the set of Super Mario Brothers, you've just been talking to an absolutely blazingly drunk Dennis Hopper for the last 45 minutes, and then you're like, thank God I finally got it out of that. Bob Hoskins, how are you? And he's just like, you're like, John Leguizamo, please. It's like, he's like downing a bottle of Everclear. And then you see Yoshi, and you're like, he isn't physically accosting me. Maybe I should have him in my movie.
Yeah, no, fair point. But
Yoshi's in the movie because
they clearly
Yoshi's
spent a lot of money. They spent a lot of money on that Yoshi animatronics.
They were like going back home. They were like selling their cougar hands. They're just like, come on. Let's make Yoshi look good. He serves no blood function whatsoever.
Now, Daisy goes to Koopa, and then, they figure out the Mario Brothers are in the desert, so they have to send the Koopa cousins after them. But
they've proven ineffectual up to this point.
So they decide to evolve them.
Turns out if you have a de-evolution gun, you can also do it in reverse. It's no problem.
Yeah. So they evolve them to be smarter.
Yeah, because like the film can't imagine what humans would evolve into. They just become smarter humans, right?
Yeah, although they say, I think, because again, this is all ad-libbing from the actors, but they say, what is the square root of 26,581? And the guy replies 191, and that's just wrong. But again, who's gonna know? Who's gonna know watching Super Mario Brothers?
Who's checking? Yeah.
Yeah.
This is before the era of smartphones.
Yeah,
no one has a calculator in the theater. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they become basically socialists.
Yeah, like the
right?
I guess how as close as the filmmakers and then the actors ad-libbing it could imagine socialists would be. It's a very limited perspective, but I guess the default there.
Yeah, one, they can only imagine it because Koopa is sort of like a autocratic ruler, right? So the fact that he kind of recalls sort of like ideas in American culture of like what like Soviet leaders might have been like, or what like other fascist leaders might have been like, allows these smart Koopas to perceive their oppression, right? Like
Iggy and Spike have been preaching your overthrow at the Boom Boom Bar.
Really? I am very disappointed in you cousins.
Fascist! Oppressor of the proletariat!
Guy in charge.
Egg sucker.
Kill them!
Yeah, so they essentially realize that we're all on the same team, us and the Mario Brothers. So they go out to the desert, but they befriend the Mario Brothers when they encounter them in the desert. And they all decide, we need to go back and re-secure this meteorite segment necklace and stop President Koopa because he's a fascist. And so,
and we know we know that the meteorite piece has been taken by this character Bertha, who I get, is it the Koopa brothers who know who she is? It turns out she like operates a nightclub, so it's like, we have a place to go in. And this is where I want to just make a brief like interjection with like, so it's time to go to the nightclub, and Mario and Luigi, who I just want to note, the most of the previous part of the film, inexplicably, Luigi has been wearing like a reddish hoodie and Mario has been wearing like a greenish hoodie. And that changes, but there's like a good segment of the film where they're doing that. And then it's like, let's go to the nightclub time. We have to get in our nightclub dress. And I'm like, okay, here we are. We're going to emerge in our proper colors. Again, Luigi goes to the nightclub, and again, they're wearing kind of these like Night at the Roxbury suits, but Luigi wearing a stark bright red one, and Mario wearing yellow. So they're just like fucking with us at this.
Yeah, they're subverting like, expectations.
You know, they're like, you want to see them in red and green? Fuck you. But so we have this nightclub scene. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, they get the necklace.
They get the necklace. There's like some weird dancing.
I will say, I will splice this. I will splice this in because it's hilarious. There is a cut scene where Iggy and Spike rap, and it's basically the musical Hamilton. It's the way that it lines up with how Hamilton works is it's you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two. They do a brief rap that is obvious.
I haven't seen this.
It was apparently and obviously ad-libbed by the actors.
You realize what our society has become?
You ever get the feeling you're an automatic pilot? You're going through the motions like waves in the ocean?
That life is a series of brainless notions, and you want to feel something more than empty emotions.
Well, we met two plumbers.
Who had an idea.
They showed us the lane.
And the new frontier.
And
Luigi.
They know what's right.
We gotta take a stand and put up a fight.
Well, stop and think this through. It's time to get rid of
you know who. A radical development is taking place.
Iggy.
And Spike will set the pace. Koopa. The party poopa. The poopa scoopa.
It's a crying shame. We're playing his game.
He's got us so tame. It really is
lame. We're all so dumb being under his thumb.
Be proud, reptilians. We number in the millions.
Look at these Goombas.
Shutting us down.
The rule of force
is the rule of this clown. Koopa. The party poopa.
And that obviously gets cut. They hop in a trash truck, a dumpster truck, that for some reason drops them off at Koopa's tower. I don't know why the trash is dropped off in front of the tower, but they're there. All you need to know is they're now back at the scene where they can have, go through the climax of the film.
Remember this writer's room.
Yeah.
At this point, they're waking up. They're walking in. It's like, remember they're plumbers. That hasn't been significant advice for like 4 weeks. Dennis Hopper is like distilling his own gin on set. And they're just like, we gotta get him there. What do we do? Oh, what if the trash went there? Perfect. I want to go home to my family.
Really, I think the headline I put for this section in our document was basically various things happen, but the overarching idea is that they rescue the princess. You get a couple of things. One, Mario stomps on a Goomba. fans go wild.
Oh my
Super
God.
Mario Brothers. Now, Luigi gets the kidnapped women from New York who have all been like kidnapped over time. He gets them and they like escape through the piping. That to me was
so
the pipe
that's
scene.
that is the pipe scene.
Yeah.
There
So
you go.
They're just getting in all the great. They're like trying to bridge the world.
They're just checking boxes off at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and like before this, there's been another plumbing issue that their plumbing capacity has solved, where Mario's like, these pipes haven't been serviced for years. Must have been a non-union job. And then they make the pipes blast cold throughout the entire facility, which like helps them, I guess.
Yeah.
Slows everybody
sabotage.
down.
Yeah. So at the same time, this Lena character has captured the asteroid shard that they need to put back in the asteroid or the meteor to merge the dimensions. And she goes off on her own to merge the dimensions. Okay. And so she's going off to merge the dimensions. Meanwhile, Mario is getting to this big battle with King Koopa. And they're fighting while at the same time, this Lena character is deciding, I can do it. I can do the thing. And she puts it in the shard into the meteor to merge the worlds, is immediately killed.
It's basically the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, right?
Yeah, it has that sort of vibe.
That kind of vibe. It's like you think anyone can do this forbidden thing, but like it's actually gonna like fuck you up.
It's the cinematic world in which we live. A world does not exist where power cannot be wielded by the monarch. Like power is bestowed, and so Daisy is the only one who can reunite the worlds. And so the fact that this person who did not have this divine gift of power tried to merge the worlds, obviously she's going to die. Only the monarch can restore order.
Well, because this film in some ways it's like it's reckoning with the problems of this kind of like post-Cold War US democracy, right? Which doesn't resemble whatever an actual democracy would be very well, right? And the problem of like someone like President Koopa ending up in charge, as they often do. And the only solution, though, it can imagine out of that is this kind of recourse to what's basically like blood quantum, like biology, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh, we'll find the actual great people who inherently are capable of doing the thing that no one else can.
Apparently the only two decisions in any of these fictional universes it's fascism or monarchy. Like those are the only worlds that exist in any of these 90s films that involve like this sort of theme. Perhaps one day we'll watch Surf Ninjas. That is a similar theme. Like those are the only two paths that you can take.
Yeah. And monarchy ends up being the good path, but because what monarchy does in these films is it stops fascism. And then it's like, anyway, enjoy your democracy. Best of luck. Like, here it is back to you.
Yeah.
Nothing went wrong. I'm Cuomo. How's everybody doing? Oh, no. I've been told I've done sexual harassment. Well, I just want you to know I've known Goombas and Toads for years. I've stomped on their heads repeatedly. It's meant to convey warmth. It's a sign of love. I didn't mean to make them pop out of existence. I wasn't trying to accumulate coins and points. But I find myself at the end of this stage grasping the flag. They tell me the princess is in another castle. So I've got to go. I'll see you later.
So there is this whole climactic battle.
Did you enjoy your spaghetti and meatballs? Would you like to date me? Oh, no. I've done it again.
Hey, it's me, Chris Cuomo. I think what my brother's trying to tell you is he'd love to take you out for a dinner.
No, what I'm trying to say is I want to harass you, but I want to get away with it. Oh no, I'm in a pickle here. Oh.
Oh God. Okay. So a lot happens all at once. Mario is fighting King Koopa. Yeah. What is it? You need a pause. Oh, you're talking about the bomb? You're doing a visual symbol. Okay, I see. You're doing the winding up. You thought I was gonna forget about the bomb. I wasn't. How dare you, sir? Mario is fighting King Koopa, President Koopa. This bomb has been like dropping down throughout the film. The fungus clearly intends for them to use the bomb, and Luigi gets it. Luigi is like, "Hey, Mario, we need to resort to violence to stop the dictator. The fungus is trying to tell us something." But Mario this whole time is like, "What are you talking about, Luigi? We can resolve this through electoral politics." But eventually, Mario winds up the bomb, and
very small.
It's a very small. It's tiny, but everyone in Dino Haddon is freaked out by it
because they know what it is.
They know what it is, and
He's got a
but it falls through the floor, and so it's gone, and so Koopa's like, "Aha, you messed up."
Stop again, mammal.
So keep in mind, the bomb is still going, though. It's just down in the underworld where the fungus can carry it along. At the same time, again, Lena, this henchman, reunites the dimensions by putting the shard back into the meteor. She's dead, but the worlds start to realign.
We're merging. You don't have the rock. You filthy man. We're merging!
And we go back to New York. Scapelli is there. King Koopa shows up in now the human dimension. They have their de-evolution guns now. They've shrunken this.
They didn't really establish very well, but he turns Scapelli into a chimpanzee.
And nobody seems to mind. No one is bothered by the fact that this has happened. Everyone
we get the line like, "Boss, what did they do to you?" But like,
the chimpanzee does like classic trained chimpanzee things, and so the audience starts going, "Oh!" All the people who had gathered around this.
Yeah, no one is like questioning reality or anything. No one,
there are Goombas here.
Like, no one's rushing to a priest, but
But then Luigi, who is at the meteor with Daisy, he uses the power of plumbing, because again, remember the whiteboard. Remember, they're plumbers. He uses like various plumbing tools. If you look at
he names them, and she passes them to him in the classic fashion. You've seen the scene where it's like, I need the so and so. It's like long and it has a red end or whatever. It's like that kind of thing.
And he uses that to get the meteor shard back out, and so the universe is split back up. And I mean, long story short, we're back to the battle, and the bomb goes off at this point. We're back between Bowser and Mario. It blows up. King Koopa, Bowser is thrown to like a giant pot that's just like hanging above the street. It doesn't
like Mario
don't
World,
doesn't
there's
matter.
like different. There's platforms. It's a platformer game.
Now Mario and Luigi have the de-evolution guns. They just shoot King Koopa until he becomes a Tyrannosaurus Rex, because remember the source material, and then they keep shooting him until he becomes slime,
primordial slime.
Yes. So he has been fully de-evolved, and so they win.
Yay!
Yeah, they've overcome the oppressor. Time to reestablish the monarchy.
Yeah, and then the mushroom, the vague fungal system we've previously seen spreading throughout the entire kingdom, in almost a metaphor for democracy, I guess, becomes Bishop from Aliens.
Yeah, they don't clarify why he re-evolves spontaneously into the king, but it's like a brief cameo with Bishop from Aliens, with Lance Henriksen. I think he says something like,
I'm back. Love those plumbers.
It's like one line. Like, that's weird. Okay.
I don't know what he must have wanted some of Dennis Hopper's gin or something. He just like wandered it off.
Imagine
street.
him walking in on week 15 to this whole scene. He has
All right.
one line.
Okay, I've got it. Yeah. What's the line again? All right.
So those plumbers. That's what
You
it's
know,
all
and
about.
everybody's happy. We've
Yeah.
restored order. And the important thing is that all of the kind of contradictions we were pointing to earlier in the movie about how unstable this apparently fully emergent capitalism is now that the Soviet Union has fallen, the state of unionized labor, the state of Italian Americans, the state of the university, all these things we've been pointing to about how like what shaky ground they're on. Well, who cares, because we solved it by making everything back to the way it was at the beginning of the film.
And all problems were solved, and that was the end of history. I've read the book. I know how it goes. We did it.
I think Francis Fukuyama was watching this film and he had to like run off to the bathroom and be like, I've got it. There's nothing else to do.
We did it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing else you really need to know. They do like a setup for a sequel that obviously never happens for reasons that should be apparent at this point.
Much like the Andrew Cuomo presidential bid.
Yeah, Daisy bursts into their apartment 3 weeks later, says, "You're never going to believe this." And then Mario says,
I believe it.
You do?
I believe.
That's character development, my friend, because he started off not.
He's
The only thing he
learned to
believed is that the
believe.
rent was overdue, but
Oh
he's
my
learned to
God.
believe. He's learned to believe.
So folks out there having trouble paying your rent as we suffer a global pandemic and the state does nothing to help you, you gotta believe, folks.
So all you need to remember is that line, and do this in your best Obama voice. Nothing's impossible, Mario. Improbable, unlikely, but never impossible.
So don't worry about
Don't worry
changing
about it.
anything.
Super Mario Brothers, the film, 1993. How many Shia LaBeoufs would you give this one, Devin?
So, you know, and I operate on a logarithmic scale, and you know, I don't need to explain that to our listeners, but
No.
on that, I'm going a cool 9.11 Shia LaBeoufs.
Wow. Wow. Now I work on a linear scale and also 9.1 Shia LaBeoufs.
You know, and it's like, I look back at this film, and I remember seeing this film as a kid and being like, sack of shit. But I look back on this movie and I see, you know, I go back to that initial and quickly forgotten conflict of like the dinosaur dig. And you can't dig here. Like, you can't do your development here. And I think like, I feel like every fucking movie from the 90s, like that was like the starter plot, is like, there's some like bad capitalist guy and he wants to do something somewhere. And like some people are like, don't do it here. Like fucking Dumb and Dumber has this premise, right? Like the owls or whatever. Like, isn't there something in that?
No,
where it's
we're
like,
somehow, but like now every film, it seems like now, like there's the bad guy is like an eco-fascist.
Yeah. But
Anyways.
like this film threw a lot of these tropes out there, I think, you know, and the fact that this film is a huge sack of shit and doesn't make any sense makes it in many ways a truer reflection of the 1990s than whatever else you want to point to as like the film of this era.
Rudy Giuliani, much like President Koopa, is coming in to clean up town. What does clean up the town mean? It means
get rid of the fungus.
Yes, incorporate a carceral state, and And everything will sort itself out. And everything worked out well for both President Koopa and Rudy Giuliani. We might be, I mean, honestly, given the parallels, I think we're ready for a sequel.
Yeah.
This film...
And that's really...
Yeah, this film was so poorly received that Nintendo did not do another live-action film until 2019 with Pokemon, Detective Pokemon or whatever it was.
Detective Pikachu.
Yeah, Detective Pokemon was the next one they did.
You know, and the thing, as we're always saying on this podcast, you go back, you watch Super Mario Brothers, you don't want to live in Super Mario Brothers' future, but you do. So,
welcome to Dino Haddon, everyone.
Deal with it. You know, thank you for listening. This has been You're Tall, But I'm Standing in Front of You. Please find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the podcast app of your choice, and do give us a 5-star rating. You can follow us on Twitter at YourTallPod, follow Ethan at Mathisipi, or follow me at Stale Cooper. If you have any thoughts about what you'd like us to watch or read next, DM us on Twitter or email us at yourtallpod@gmail.com. And always remember,
trust the fungus.